Ethics as it relates to the negotiating process. Our plan is to have you review this presentation, read the brief summary document that accompanies this video, and take the quiz. You will learn that ethics comes from ethos, which means character. You will learn to be deliberate and thoughtful in assessing ethical dilemmas. And you should follow the golden rule. Do unto others as you want them to do unto you, and be the example that others remember positively. A definition of ethics. It comes from the Greek word ethos, which means character. It's really about how one should act, even when alone. Business ethics is considered applied or professional ethics. It examines ethical principles and morals or ethical problems that arise in business environments. Government plays a critical role through the use of laws and regulations to keep business behavior functioning in a way that's beneficial, presumably or typically to society. However, this is not always the case. Business ethics is about regulating those areas and details of behavior beyond governmental control. It's especially important with the rise of the mega global corporation that often seems insensitive to people and communities, and only focused on profits and shareholder wealth. Negotiation ethics is about really asking yourself, when are my needs and wants more important than treating this person in a moral or socially acceptable manner? It's not focused on a win-win if one party is more interested in their own needs rather than in looking at both their own needs as well as the other parties. Some starting points for thinking about ethical choices. Even if you choose to lie or be unethical, at least be honest with yourself. And be aware of trade-offs. Those things that we do that protect ourselves from harm or for emotional impact. Be aware of bluffing or representing yourself in a false positive manner, deceiving people. Note that distrust also has a cost. And that relationship is almost always a factor. We sometimes say things to harm or to avoid situations because of our relationships. Also recognize the conditions for deception. Deception can occur when one party has little to lose or much to gain. Where the available information, asymmetry, is great. In other words, one party has more information or access to more information than the other. When it's hard to tell if there's an intent to deceive, where verification or validation is different or difficult, where the interaction between the parties is infrequent and you don't know each other that well. If deception is caught, you should address it or redress it as soon as you can. However, this can be extremely difficult. It can get quite emotional and can lead to the parties not even attempting to negotiate. And if information is unavailable, unreliable, or costly, it's better to spend time trying to get as much information and becoming better informed than to possibly enter into a negotiation. Some protections that promote honesty include seeking and building social and institutional support, building personal relationships and interdependence, knowing the laws and regulations, using independent or unbiased sources for facts and evaluation, establishing institutional sources of reputation for information, using third parties, using standardized contract mechanisms that already pass the tests of law and tests of regulatory bodies to help establish a common focus, and then also verifying and validating affiliations and credentials. The following process allows you to thoughtfully assess a potentially ethical dilemma. The first step is in recognizing that a dilemma in fact exists, then evaluating the dilemma, gathering more information, checking your legal and regulatory frameworks, making decisions about whether or not you believe you can resolve the issue based on the information you have. Can you justify the decision, if you're inclined to make a decision, with sound arguments? Then there's two tests. First off, if the information that you made a decision in a certain way is made public, will they be happy with your decision? And secondly is more personal, but did you follow the golden rule? Did you do unto the other party as you would have them do unto yourself? Did you set a good example for others to follow? Let's look at a couple of cases. What would you decide? And remember the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Be fair, listen, set an example for others to follow. In case one, let's say that you can sell a client your company's good and make a good commission and a nice profit for your company. The client tells you that you can get the order. All you have to do is buy him and his wife a vacation cruise in the Mediterranean. Would you give the cruise to get the commission? Let's analyze this using our process. Let's recognize that to buy the cruise for the client or not versus getting the sale or the commission is the dilemma. When you start the evaluation process, you may ask questions like, is this really a big deal? Is it a fair trade-off? Is it just doing a favor for somebody who did a favor for me, quid pro quo? Will anyone really care? You may start to gather information in a very systematic and logical way. How much is the profit margin on a sale? How much will the cruise cost? Who pays for the cruise? Can I afford it for my commission? Then you may consider laws and regulations. Are there governmental or corporate or association laws or regulations against this? As you seek to resolve the issue, you may decide, what can I conclude from all the information I've gathered? If you move past this step, you may then sit back and say, if I buy the cruise for my own commission and the company's not involved, it's a favor for a friend and everybody will be happy, right? Well, consider the tests. What will the public think? Will they think that you bribed the customer? How might it reflect on the company, even if the company is not directly involved? Or on the client for accepting it? Is it fair competition? Does it violate some anti-corruption acts? And then finally, is it really fair? Does it set a good example for others, like my children, to follow? What would you do? Think about it. Let's look at a second case. Your company outsources the manufacturing of products to a company that employs many children aged 10 to 12 years old to work in their factories in a third world country. You hire them because they have small fingers and can do the detailed work you need better than adults. They also earn less daily than adults. Your country has laws that prohibit people younger than 16 years old to work in these types of jobs. You just found out about the hiring practice of your outsourcing partner. What would you do? Again, let's follow our process. You recognize that the dilemma really is, do we continue to outsource work to the firm that hires young children? In your evaluation process, you may ask, are the children harmed? What are the local laws? And how will we be affected, our company? You may seek information about benefits, about health issues related to the children working, about education and whether they have access to it, about the local economy, about profit margins, or other kinds of business and societal information. You may consider the laws. Are there governmental or corporate or association laws or regulations against this? And as you seek to resolve it, you may say, what can I conclude from all the information I've gathered? As you move towards the process of justifying it, you may say, if I use another firm, I may lose profits, the children lose income, families and communities lose, as do we. So it may be a lose-lose that I set up. Is that acceptable? Let's look at our tests. What will the public think? Will they think that we are abusing children somehow? Will they recognize the positives? How will it impact the company, my career, our share price? And then how about the golden rule? Is it fair? Does it set a good example for others like my children to follow? It's not easy. What would you do? Remember the goals of a negotiation: agreement on a fair value, a fair exchange, a long-term trusting relationship, and positive references. I think when you see the words fair and trust and positive, you realize that you may want to step back from the situation and think through other alternative scenarios. If the children actually need income and need support, maybe there's another approach. Maybe the approach involves helping their families in some significant way. Not necessarily to just receive benefit without some kind of return, but instead to revisit the overall process in terms of how the family earns a viable income in a legitimate way that's acceptable to all parties. So it's a challenge, but it's a worthy challenge. And remember that negotiating is a process, and most people aren't prepared for it. So spending some time in advance, thinking through potential dilemmas, and thinking through the process, will help you in the long run. Some key takeaways. Ethics comes from ethos, which means character. Be deliberate and thoughtful in assessing ethical dilemmas. Do unto others as you want them to do unto you. Be the examples that others remember positively. So what's next? Read the brief summary document that accompanies this video. Take the quiz. You'll be finished. Thank you. This is the end of Negotiation Ethics.